It's fresh on your mind also.
Fresh in the mind.
Fresh.
Fresh.
Bubby. Efreef.
Efreef.
Yes.
Smubby.
Bubbity 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 bubbity.
Babbity-biddy-babbity-biddy-biddy.
Skibabada baby blue blue blue. Oh, one person has listened to it, or at least started it.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh, ho, ho.
Ho, ho, ho.
It's John.
That would make sense.
What a
Probably John.
What a
It's
narcissist.
what a narcissist. It's a 23 to 27-year-old male, so it's probably John. But if it's not John,
He's
Thank
within
you.
hello to
range.
whoever you are.
You're not a narcissist if you're not John.
The person listening to the beginning of that episode was listening to that episode. Hopefully they roll into this.
Please
episode
finish
also.
it if you like, or if you're bored, we understand.
Skip about halfway through.
I mean,
Then-
I wasn't in it. It couldn't have been that good.
True. Very true.
That
What, that makes the third one I missed?
I think it's only the second.
No. There was the
Like,
the
you had the Avatar-
StarCraft.
all
Oh,
time.
yeah.
StarCraft, Avatar,
And
then
this one.
This one.
Okay.
I think I've still got the record by a good margin, but
Yeah.
Because of miscommunication, I have yet to miss one.
you would have missed one
Yeah, if I had.
if we had our ducks in the row.
Yeah,
But we didn't.
But we
didn't.
didn't.
But now we're working on getting our ducks more back in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait. We'll be getting back into the swing of things with a regular uploading schedule, more like what it had been.
Well,
So
our lives have been a lot less scheduled over the summer. Let's be real here.
I mean that's kind of natural. One would assume.
Mm-hmm. Given that two of us are still in classes and stuff.
Mm.
By the way, I have two cousins who started listening to the podcast.
Shout out.
Yes.
Shout out to
Shout
you,
out.
Megan and Sabrina, if you're listening to this episode.
And we know
you.
you are.
And we know you are.
To steal a bit.
Yeah.
But Megan isn't Catholic, and so she's a little not in the know about the whole process of seminary and what it takes to become a priest and the schooling involved. So I think for her sake, could you give us a quick rundown of what seminary looks like?
Yeah, sure. So, seminary is kind of like a process of, we like to call it formation. You're being formed as a total human person. And so school is but one part of that, and arguably the least important part of that. So we have what we usually refer to 4 pillars of formation, 4 like key foundational things that are necessary to make a good priest. First is human formation, and that's just like, being a good human, just on a non-spiritual level, just being a good human. So that comes down to things like your ability to hold down a conversation, to initiate a conversation, to have good hygiene so you're approachable. Anything like personality or, body related, that falls under human formation. And then we have spiritual formation, which, as it sounds, is about the spiritual life. So prayer, the liturgy of the hours,
Prayer.
prayer, and more prayer. That's about what that's like.
That every time we say prayer now, we're just going to be like, dung.
Dung.
Snap our microphone stand springs.
And then we have pastoral formation, which is doing the work of a pastor, a priest. So you go, things like learning all of the different ways you reach out to people, hospital ministry, youth formation, RCIA, which is like teaching people who are interested in becoming Catholic. So all these different ways of outreach that we have, pastoral formation is about training you to do those. And intellectual formation, which is the schooling stuff. Normally that whole process consists of 6 to 8 years, depending on where you're coming in from.
Sure. And you had 4 years of college.
I had 4 years of
behind
college before I started. So that means I only have to do 6 years.
you. Mm-hmm.
If you were coming fresh out of high school, you'd have to do 8.
Okay.
So the first 4 years, or 2 in my case, are kind of a general's, a typical college experience, but you're a philosophy major.
Mm-hmm.
So
You get your bachelor's.
Yep, you get a bachelor's degree in philosophy, and a lot of places the programs are light enough that you can have a second major or a minor in something if you like. So college seminary is pretty flexible in terms of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
But philosophy is always a key part of that. Training us to think well. That's what that's all about.
Mm-hmm.
It is a lot of secular philosophy, but, first and foremost, there's a history of philosophy that's important to understand. Just the way the patterns of thought over history have gone. So understanding those kind of helps you understand why we are where we are in the intellectual climate today. And once you get done with that, you have theology school, which is learning about the faith in particular.
And the study of God, as the name would imply.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That spider on the ceiling is really distracting.
So you'll study things like scripture, canon law, more systematic theological topics. So there's a church history.
Sure.
So there's a lot of variety in that theology years.
So
Yeah.
And then is it your last 2 or last year that that you're ordained a deacon?
Your last year.
Your last year you're ordained
You're
a transitional deacon?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
which is basically guaranteed you're going to be ordained at that point.
Right.
You have the right to be ordained.
Yeah.
You may or may not get to do much if they decide they don't want you anymore.
Yep.
But you have a canonical right
Yeah.
to be ordained. a priest
Assuming
once you've
everything
been-
goes well.
All right. Thank you very much, and hopefully that answers any questions.
If you have further questions, feel free to email them to palladianpapist@gmail.com.
You get one in person. You
Yeah.
get one.
You get one. That's sort of your freebie. That's like the promo code. You get one free question in person. All subsequent questions to palladianpapist@gmail.com.
Because we just like the idea of having official channels for people to go through.
I mean, it makes my inbox easier.
But nobody uses it because we have a tiny audience.
Who all directly know us
Mhm.
and have opportunities to interact with us either face to face or otherwise.
Yes. Telepathically.
Yes.
With our 5G chips implanted in us.
In our teeth. Like we have a 5G tooth. So yeah, that's seminary formation in a nutshell.
In a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, a little fermented curd would do the trick. So I sallied forth and infiltrated your place of abeyance to negotiate the vending of some cheesy comestibles.
Mm-hmm. Maybe if we ever have an audience and can do a Patreon, we can just have Riley's impressions of Monty Python sketches as a
As a
as rewards.
you pay
bonus.
enough and you'll get the full Albuquerque experience.
With musical accompaniment and everything, not just
We should do like a whole hire the Lessart family band to play the background tracks
we gotta make it
for
happen.
Albuquerque, and I'll just do it.
Let's get to
Dude,
work on this.
that we should at your ordination party when you that should be the
Yes.
thing we do.
So I bet you're all wondering how I came to become a priest.
What else?
Well, let me tell you, way back when I was just a little bitty boy.
Everyone who knows you is like, oh no.
Oh no!
All the guests diocesan people are like, this is fascinating. What on earth?
I bet Isaac would be down for that.
Oh yeah, we're in some way we're gonna do this at least for fun. It's gonna happen. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
It'll probably be a while.
There's some other projects in the works people can look forward to.
Speaking of Lessart's playing music, how were your weekends?
Oh yeah.
Because
Well,
mine had Lessart's playing music in it.
after we recorded the last podcast, we did a bunch of hanging out, John, Riley, and I, over the weekend. We
I was
went
there
to
for a day of that when I got home on Sunday.
Yep. On Friday, we went to a arcade/bar in Fargo called Pixeled, which was pretty good. I hadn't been there before, and after that, we went to Drecker Brewing Company. Free advertising. You're welcome. to people who already probably go to those establishments. So yeah, good beer, good company. And Saturday we watched
And we
a
played
movie.
Scopa!
We played Scopa, which was I had to yell very loud in a crowded bar.
And he was not very good at it.
No,
James can't yell that well
in public.
in public. He has the inhibitor on in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Which maybe that's a good thing. We've
Yeah.
done good with him.
We've made some progress from where
On
we started.
A bit.
uninstalling that filter.
A bit.
Still gets a little finicky when he plays video games competitively, but
Or just plays video
in
games at all.
general,
Yeah.
at all.
Double Dash. It was a good time last night. We played some Double Dash.
Super Monkey Ball. Not such a good time.
Oh no!
That game. I mean, the bowling was fun. I understand. Okay, I was like, I understand how to do this part. Even every time the course would warp and change somehow, and
Sure.
so it wasn't just straightforward bowling. But
Yeah, it was monkey ball bowling.
yeah,
I've
the
never
monkey
actually
ball
played a
racing
monkey ball
was
game.
just pain.
I've heard they're fun though.
They are fun.
The racing part was just pain for me.
Oh yeah.
Well, because for the first 3 rounds, I was looking at Riley's screen.
Hey, I'm doing pretty good.
I mean, you would think that I would learn at this point, having played video games for some time, to know where my screen is. Oh well.
Oh.
Which jack is my controller plugged into?
Mm-hmm.
The third one.
Or even just like, which one responds to my stimuli?
Well, when you're in a racing game, you're all kind of doing vaguely the same thing.
Yeah, it's a
vaguely
little-
at the same time.
Yeah.
You could be deceived into thinking it was functional when it was not.
Mm-hmm.
If you got one guy falling off the course or running into a wall,
That's a good indicator.
that you're looking at the wrong person.
Mm-hmm. It's a little tricky though, because you can catch yourself like following all the motions of the other person's screen, and then you're like, wait a minute, hold on.
But anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah. My
That was
weekend
that.
was the family reunion. That's why I wasn't here. The Lasart side, you may have heard me talk about a different family reunion.
Mm-hmm.
But that was my mom's side. I'm entitled to 2 halves, I
Mm-hmm.
imagine. Part of which was the reception for my sister's wedding
Yep.
because we had her wedding in
Was
Chicago.
that when we did the StarCraft episode?
I think that was.
I think that was,
Last
yeah.
time I was gone, I was in Chicago for my sister's wedding.
And then the next
but
time
nobody
you were
could-
gone, it was basically the same reason.
Well, because you can't expect all the Minnesota folks to fly all the way to Chicago, and it's we might as well just have a second party here. And it was a good time. I actually got to play music.
There you go.
Those are the fun dances. The fun dances are the
Where
ones
you're
where
the
Nathan plays music.
Yes.
But
Dance, fools. Dance.
Dance monkey. But no, it was real good. Dad passed around
Blue Label.
$200 bottle of whiskey, and
I
that
think
was good.
At Michelle and
gin-
Andrew's wedding, I didn't get a chance at that, unfortunately. It looked really good.
It was smooth.
Mm-hmm.
But then the rest of the weekend was the family reunion weekend. They've been doing themes recently, and so this year's theme was the Wizard of Oz. And so there's a lot of really funny and clever like decorations. My aunts are weird like that. Like you got like the trees done up with apple baubles on them and a spooky face painted on it, and you got like the Wicked Witch of the East's stockings and ruby slippers sticking out from under an outhouse.
Yep.
You know, like you do. And there was a costume portion, and that was funny. And
Last year was Scooby Doo, wasn't it?
no. I went to Scooby. I don't know if it was last year.
Was
I
that
don't think
2
last
years
year had a theme aside from Stay 6 Feet Apart. The year before was Clue themed, and so we went as like we dressed up as detectives and stuff, and so that's why we did Scooby Doo, because we had enough to do full-
Different detective troops.
yeah.
Nice.
So you had all your criminals and all your detectives and all your stuff like that. It was Clue themed.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was my weekend.
Good
time.
stuff.
Long drive though.
Yeah. Well, speaking of weekends, we spent a lot of our time building this podcast and website on the weekends. We're the Palladium Papists. I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
and I'm Riley. Well, that was
You could have found something smoother to transition with.
I mean, It was
Speaking of the weekend,
yeah.
we're talking about the Super Bowl.
Speaking of Super Bowl, we're
This isn't. What is this an edition of?
we're doing Gregarious Games. We're
Gregarious-
talking about Portal, the Portal series.
So yes, at long last, Gregarious Games makes a return.
Indeed.
I think
How-
StarCraft was the last Gregarious Games we
So,
did.
only like 4 weeks ago, but still,
Well, 5 if you count the break or whatever.
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 Nobody,
The point is, we're
nobody
talking
looks
about
at the date when they're going through their Spotify.
Point is, we're talking about a video game today.
Yes, we are.
So,
All-time great, in fact.
oh yeah. Portal and Portal 2 are both games by Valve. I think Portal 1 was like 2004 and Portal 2 was 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
The creators of the Half-Life series and
In
also
fact-
the Steam game
In
web
fact, it was
store.
created as kind of a tech demo having fun with the physics engine in Half-Life.
Mm-hmm.
So, Portal 1. You wake up in a clean, shiny testing facility called the Aperture Science Labs Testing Center. There's a slightly humorous name for it they have, but... so you wake up in this thing, it's like, hey, start testing. The portal will open in 3, 2, 1. Walk through the portal, and you realize, oh, this is how portals work. You shoot one on one wall, shoot one on the other wall, and you can walk through them. That's the game.
One
So-
in, one out.
So you explore and do puzzles. You put blocks and buttons. You redirect energy balls into sockets and stuff.
You're required to incinerate your friend the cube.
Yeah, that
The
happens.
companion cube.
You get a portal gun so that you can shoot and jump and all the stuff. And you explore and you do these things, but
This deadpan robot voice is giving you orders.
slightly ominous and kind of callous sounding orders.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just all it seems pretty straightforward. You jump and you
And then
put
things
blocks places.
slowly start to become more and more ominous and sinister.
Yeah, slowly the cracks start to show because, but in one of the rooms, there's like a room that's like a testing facility for military androids, but because the next test was broken, so they send you to that one instead, and so you gotta run away from little turrets that shoot bullets at you. Behind like a
And
wall
say
panel-
strangely endearing sentences like, I don't hate you. Yeah, in very, very like calm voices.
So you go. So there's like some wall panels that have been pried open, and there's some scrapes on the floor and some eerie writing like, "Oh, something's gone down."
The
here.
cake is a lie.
Yeah, well, because earlier, like a couple rooms before, the computer voice over the intercom was like, "Congratulations on doing so well on that test. By the way, at the end of your test, you'll have cake. So good luck." And apparently, the cake is a lie. According to the crazy scrawlings of the man behind the walls. And so that's unnerving. But you keep going and doing the tests, and slowly more and more it's like obvious you're trying to kill you, and that there's more, like the crazy scrawlings on the wall show up again and again, and it's like, oh, something very wrong. Until you get to the last testing chamber, test chamber like 19 or something, and you're riding this little lift elevator, sideways elevator, and
Like a conveyor.
like a conveyor platform, and the voice is like, well, thank you for being a good test subject. By the way, the Aperture Science portal gun can survive up to 10,000 degrees. Unfortunately, you can't, so bye-bye, and starts to drop you into fire, and you're like, oh crap. So you escape that by using some clever thinking outside the box portal usage. And the computer's like, wait, that's not supposed to happen. I mean, you thank you for completing the test where we pretended that we were going to murder you, lie flat on your back, and wait for someone to collect you. And you're like, nope, I'm going to
Keep
press
running.
forward. So you press forward into the abandoned laboratory. You get into the offices, nobody's there. All the computers are on, but nobody's alive around.
And you sort of make your way through like the different back rooms and service tunnels and whatnot.
Like the little observation decks that you've been able to see through windows earlier.
And you're just trying to get out.
At this point, your objective is escape.
Mm-hmm.
So you climb your way into the central computer room where you meet GLaDOS, a genetic life form and disk operating system. That's what that's a acronym for. And she's like, well, congratulations, you found me. But it's not going to do you any good except for then like a robot part drops off her. She's like, what is that thing? Why don't you just put that back? Don't touch that.
Mm-hmm.
But then you look around.
Nothing going on here.
Nothing going on here. You look around and see the incinerator that you earlier used to incinerate your cube friend, and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna do something." She's like, "You know what? You shouldn't have incinerated that because that was the only thing keeping me from flooding this place full of deadly neurotoxin, like I did a while ago to all the scientists. So now I'm just gonna, kill you with poison." And you're like, "No, I'm gonna shoot rockets at you and rip all your parts off and throw them into the fire." And she's like, and she goes slowly more and more crazy and angry with you
because you're destroying the different computer components that make her run.
It's actually really great. Like at the start of throughout the entire game, her voice has been very like robotic text to speech.
Mm-hmm.
But once you destroy the morality core, it becomes this smooth, almost sultry, like villainous voice. And it's like, oh shoot,
this is a little more than I bargained for.
But eventually, you blow up all her parts, and the station explodes, and you fly off. And you land outside in the ground and fall unconscious. And a couple robots mistake that for the party submission position and drag you off into a relaxation vault for later. Then the credits roll, and in the ending credits song, it is explicitly made known that GLaDOS is still alive.
Mm-hmm. It's a bop of a song, too.
Oh, it's fantastic. Jonathan Colton, good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first game. Simple, short, straightforward, kind of just gets the concept across.
Yep.
Portal 2 starts out, you wake up from your stay in the relaxation vault after like a couple months you've been under.
Mm-hmm.
Do some routine exercises like looking up and looking down.
And jumping.
And staring at some art.
Wheatley.
Listening to some jazz music. Then you go back to sleep. You wake up again, and it's been significantly longer, and the things are falling apart. And you get a knock at your door, and it's this robot orb guy named Wheatley.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, hey, don't be alarmed because it's been a long time, and the place is falling apart. You might have brain damage. Let's
get you out of here.
Just hang on to something. And so he crashes you through a wall and you fall out, and he's like, so to get out, we're going to need a gun that makes holes. Not like bullet holes, but you know what I'm talking. You know it. So you get dumped back into the test chambers from the first game.
Mm-hmm.
Except it's been a long time, and they're overgrown with vegetation.
And falling
and
apart.
There's a different pre-recorded robot voice being like, hello, welcome to the Aperture Science Testing Center. We must continue testing because science, even in apocalyptic conditions. if you are irradiated or elderly in such a way where the future shouldn't start with you, send somebody else. And so you do the tests, you get the portal gun, and you meet it back up with Wheatley a little later, and he's like, oh, brilliant, you've got it. Now, let's escape. So you run around, he drops off his, like, rail that he's riding on, you carry him around. And you have to go, eventually to get out, you have to go through her room. And so you go into the GLaDOS boss chamber from the last game, and it's like, oh, nasty bit of work she was. You know who took her out? It was a human. Believe that? I mean, not that humans aren't good and all. I mean, you're a human and you're pretty good. But let's just keep going. So you find the main breaker room. He's like, okay, where's the escape pod button? How about I just push all the buttons? No, that's a bad idea. And it turns out we bring power back to the entire facility. GLaDOS wakes up and it's like, oh, it's you. It's been
You
a long
know her?
time.
Since you murdered me.
I've been really busy being dead since, you murdered me.
What?
And so she drops you into the incinerator pit to collect the second half
We
of
both
the
said a
portal
lot
gun.
of things that you're going to regret.
But I'm willing to put that behind us for
For
science.
science.
You monster.
She's even more salty than the last time.
It is so
Because
funny.
now the veil has been torn open, and you know that the cake is a lie. The jig is up.
Right.
Mhm.
So she can just be herself.
Yeah.
And she's also, mad for having to be dead for a long time and have apparently she was saved in her memory was saved in a feature where she could analyze the last 5 minutes before she died. For science, of course.
Yes.
But so she's been reliving the moment you blew her up for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So she's kind of salty.
Yeah.
So you do some more test chambers, and she's, we're going to have a wonderful time together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so delightful, so funny.
Just throwing little barbs and insults as you go. You're looking pretty fat.
Most people actually come out of hypersleep extremely wasted away. But no, you do some of her test chambers, and there's some salty back and forth. And eventually you meet back up with Wheatley. And he's like, you know what? I have a plan. It's bloody dangerous, but let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you grab him and you make an escape through the back rooms, and you turn off the turrets, you turn off her neurotoxin gas, and so now she can't do anything against you. And then you eventually go back into her room to face her. And so what happens is you place Wheatley in the facility decides that GLaDOS has gotten corrupt, and so they require a computer transfer, a core computer transfer.
Mm-hmm.
And so Wheatley's like, "Ooh, that's brilliant! Put me in!" And she's like, "No, don't do that. Don't put that little idiot in charge." You stick him in the thing, you push the button, and GLaDOS's head gets ripped off, and Wheatley's head gets put on the robot body, and now he's in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. Look at how huge he is. He's so cool and powerful now.
Mm-hmm.
And so as he's making his escape, he's like, wait a minute. I kind of like being powerful and cool here.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? You're annoying. All you've done is boss me around and carry me around and drop me. And GLaDOS is like, wait a minute. I know who you are. And he's like, what? She's like, the scientists tried everything they could to slow me down and make me not, kill them and become self-aware and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
One of those things they did was create a robot computer core to just endlessly give me awful ideas to make me stupider. Guess who the robot orb that makes her dumber was? It's Wheatley.
Mm-hmm.
And so the little idiot that he is, he takes her out of her robot head and puts her AI core in a potato battery
To humiliate her.
and knocks both of us down a pit into the deepest, darkest depths underneath Aperture Science.
Mm-hmm.
So we fall all the way to the very, very bottom of some ancient old mine shaft that the earliest Aperture buildings were erected
And
in.
the remnants of the original test chambers.
Right,
Some
built in
labs.
the 1950s and 60s and stuff. So you get this pre-recorded voice over the
It's Cave Johnson.
It's J. Jonah Jameson. He wants pictures of Spider-Man and he wants to build the future.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do science. Good old-fashioned American, pull yourself up by your bootstrap science.
I mean, he started out as a potato farmer and a shower curtain salesman. Now he's a big scientist guy. So
He's living the American dream.
Got to pay these test subjects 50 cents to come in here and.
no, that's later.
Okay.
This is Aperture in its prime. He addresses the fact that the first test subjects for their experiments were Olympic athletes and astronauts and soldiers and all of these really peak human performance people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and he's got his little assistant, Carolyn, who's all like, "Yes, sir, Mr. Johnson. Let's do science, right?"
whose voice is strangely familiar.
I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you go through these early Aperture labs, and you eventually meet up with Potato
You get
GLaDOS.
stuck on one that you shouldn't have gotten stuck on for so long.
If you're Riley.
If you're Riley.
Yeah.
And you sort of learn about sort of how they discovered how the whole portal stuff works. It turns out material you need to make portals on has to be moon dust.
Well, that's a little bit later, too.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Very slightly later.
Very slightly later. You meet back up with GLaDOS, and she's like, you know what? That little idiot probably isn't maintaining any of the systems. We're going to blow up in a nuclear fireball if he doesn't, if we don't take him out. So we hate each other, but we hate him more, right? So let's team up. So you stick her potato battery on the end of your portal gun, and you continue going through. You get to like the second level of Aperture Science.
Bird, kill it.
Yeah, she was being eaten by birds. And so you like move up a couple of decades in terms of Aperture Science construction.
Go ahead and close that.
And the Cave Johnson recordings indicate that there were some lawsuits involving X, Y, and Z, and now we're tough on luck. But you know what? Who wants a crisp $60 bill? You guys we found on the streets. You could run through these tests and you'll get $60. Tell you what, we'll double that if you let us take you apart, put you back together, and put some new science stuff in you. It'll be good for you.
We know how to put people back together. We've been doing this a long time.
We're just kind of throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. And so you make your way through that, and GLaDOS has some odd reactions to Cave Johnson's recordings, and it's like, wait, who is this? Do I know this guy? Did I kill him? I might have killed him. Mm-hmm. You go up one more level to like the 80s or whatever decade this is, and it's like, and you listen to Cave Johnson over the radio, and it's like, well, since we started making testing mandatory for employees, the quality of our test subjects has gone up, but our employee retention hasn't. But we got this new portal gel that we can paint on the walls made of moon dust. Turns out it's giving me cancer. So maybe let's find a way to leach moon dust poison out of somebody's system, huh? When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Mm-hmm. You get a little further, and Mr. Johnson's approaching his mortality, and he's like, you know what? No, make life give the lemons back. We're gonna figure this out. We can do AI, brain mapping, computer stuff. If we can put a song on a compact disc, we can put a man's brain in one, can't we? Mm-hmm. So, if I die before you pour me into a computer, make Carolyn do
in
it.
Charge.
And turns out that it's heavily implied at this stage that Carolyn became GLaDOS. And it's like, oh, so that's where you're from.
Mm-hmm.
She would respond with the same responses that Carolyn would give to Cave Johnson as they were going through the tests. And she's like, yes, sir, Mr. Johnson. Wait, why did I say that?
So after this, you make your way back up to the modern day Aperture Labs, where Wheatley is at his wit's end, building boxes to walk onto cubes for the sake of testing, but not working out.
And still trying to prove that, yes, he is perfectly capable of handling these things. Look at me. I'm listening to classical music and reading Machiavelli to show how smart I am.
Not an idiot.
So you and GLaDOS are forced through a couple of Wheatley's new test chambers.
Which are
really GLaDOS's reskinned test chambers.
Just mashed together with a couple other things haphazardly.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, and he all the time he's like trying to prove that no, I'm smart.
And a little butt hurt every time GLaDOS shoots a barb at him.
Mm-hmm.
And also whenever you succeed at a test,
right? Because it turns out the system, the testing system, has like a built-in euphoric response to the testing, but like drugs, you build up a tolerance to it and you need more. Mm-hmm. GLaDOS never really bothered her. She was in it for the science, but a guy like Wheatley, who isn't built for that sort of thing, it can be a little.
He's just starting
painful.
to go off his rocker.
So eventually you make your way through your test chambers, and he lays a pretty clever trap for you for the as smart as he is. And you make your way. He drops you in front of him, and GLaDOS is like, "Oh no, this is the part where he kills us." Hello, this is the part where I kill you, and it's chapter 10, the part where he kills you. I don't talk to, but you get chased by Wheatley a bit, and you go back into his like main chamber, and GLaDOS has a plan. It's like, okay, see all these rejected, corrupted cores? We're gonna plug them onto the robot body to corrupt his core, so we can do another core transfer and put me back in charge. Trust me. I won't kill you. I'm not scheming. This potato battery doesn't have enough energy to scheme. Besides, I'm hearing a conscience for the first time, and it's my voice as opposed to somebody else. Somebody attached to me. So I'm concerned. There might be something wrong with me, but we got to help each other.
Mm-hmm.
So you put other corrupted cores onto Wheatley's body, and there's one who's like all...
And the gameplay is like a strange
Space,
reverse.
space, so much space.
It's like a reverse version of the Portal 1 boss fight, which is something I was going to point out later, but that's pretty cool.
Yep.
But in the chaos, he blows up the button that would complete the transfer and blows up the roof, and he's like, I have no idea what's going on here. And in a last desperate play, you look up and, oh, there's a clear shot at the moon.
There's a nice little glint
Yeah.
that comes off the moon. And if you're paying attention earlier in the game, you would know exactly what to do.
Because moon dust conducts portals.
Because moon dust conducts portals.
And so you shoot a portal on the moon. Wheatley and everything start to get sucked into the portal and out into space. GLaDOS completes the core transfer, knocks Wheatley into orbit, and pulls you in.
Mm-hmm.
And so after that point, you wake up after your harrowing experience in space, and she's like, you know what? I realize that the good feeling I got from saving you told me where Carolyn lives in my brain, so I'm going to delete her. Mm-hmm. But also, deleting Carolyn just now taught me that the best course of action is usually the easiest. And you know what? Killing you is way too hard, so I'm just going to let you go.
Mm-hmm.
You go up the elevator, the turrets sing you a weird opera song, and then you reach the surface.
There's a Giga turret
There's a
with a crown on
Giga
it.
King turret who does like the bass part.
Yep. And this whole time is like, oh, is this where she finally just executes me? And I was like, oh, wait, no.
Oh, wait, no, you just... So you make it back up to the surface. They toss the companion cube out to you, I should say.
Like,
and
get out.
the game ends
Go,
with a
get.
song about how GLaDOS only just wants you out of her life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's another bot. Same guy.
Yep.
So there you go. Just generally, that's the story. Honestly, perhaps a little bit extended because there's really not a whole lot to the story itself. It's pretty simple.
Mm-hmm. It's really just a progression of the things you're doing.
Right. And I think that's kind of what I like about the storytelling so much.
Mm-hmm. The plot is built into the gameplay.
Right. I like how it's purely... Most of it is made through inferences and connections you make personally by observing the environment and stuff.
Which is how you play the game, because it's a puzzle game. You're trying to get from point A to point B.
Pick out all the details and stuff. As a matter of fact, the character... There's kind of an implied backstory to the character you play as. Mm-hmm. Her name is Chell. She's just some lady. But in the second game, there's a portion of the laboratory where there was the remnants of the take your daughter to work day incident where GLaDOS, I think, went crazy.
Uh-huh.
And if you're observant, looking at all the potato battery displays that there's one of them that in the bottom left-hand corner, written in crayon, is Chell's name.
Mm-hmm.
So it's heavily implied that Chell was the daughter of one of the employees who brought her to work that day.
Mm-hmm.
It has also been like theorized, and I think there's some evidence to back it up, that Chell might be the daughter of Cave Johnson and Carolyn, who was put up for adoption.
Ah.
And adopted by one of the other employees.
I see.
That would explain why GLaDOS knows so much about how her parents left her on a doorstep one day.
Yep.
Fatty, no parents. Look at her. She's not fat, you moron. in a wonderful reversal of her own prior insults.
Right. In fact, that's another thing I love about this game. They're just so funny.
Mm-hmm.
The writing is so good. The humor is so like nihilistic and callous, and it's funny.
And it takes place canonically in the same universe as Half-Life.
Yeah.
Right.
They make reference to Black Mesa pretty often. So.
Right. As like a rival company to Aperture.
Even though the stuff that they're purported to be doing is utterly different.
Well, there's
the sciencey stuff, and that's about where the vague connection ends.
right. They're both working on portals, but one's portals between 2 points and one's portals to another dimension that lets aliens out. But that's a different game.
Mm-hmm. To be covered on another edition, possibly.
Perhaps.
If we ever get around to playing Half-Life, Alex.
We can get away with just covering 1 and 2.
Yeah, 1 and
Okay.
2 are good.
Anyway,
But
for another
for
time.
now, more Portal cool stuff.
Yeah, what do we like about it? We all played Portal at this point. Riley, what were your impressions?
Having played it the most recently.
I played it like 2 years ago.
I just love it. It's so charming and like, subversive, and it's like it builds you up to expect this nice, clean, fun little puzzle game, and as the veil slowly starts to be torn apart and you learn that the cake is a lie, it builds in these like suspenseful action sequences that really aren't all that suspenseful if you realize that there's actually no time limit on anything.
But you're frantically
except the final
trying
boss
to-
fight in Portal 2,
Yeah,
Right, which has a time limit of dying of gas poisoning,
in the first one.
among
Yeah.
other things.
among other things.
Nuclear bomb explosion, neurotoxin,
Stuff like that.
messing up your brain, all that stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, it like creates suspense without actually creating unnecessary difficulty,
Yeah.
which is really cool.
Which is more of a psychological battle than a battle with the game, which is kind of
Right.
the whole point of the. That's how GLaDOS gets you, is with trying to play mind games with you.
It's a puzzle game, so the bosses are puzzles. The whole wave. I love how the first game, like the entire game up until the part where they pretended they were going to murder you, is basically the tutorial for the last bit when you're in the pipes
Yeah.
and stuff.
It teaches you the tools and the sort of paradigms that they use in the game,
It's like
and
wait,
you have to apply those to different situations as you're making your escape from the facility.
it's like I know everything I need to be able to beat this robot and escape.
I also love how the second one plays with the expectations based on the first game. There's a lot of really great subversion of expectations.
But in a way that still makes sense.
Right,
Like new mechanics that totally build off of the mechanics from the first game.
right. I mean, if you think about it hard enough, and remember, Wheatley is this orb with like these handle eyebrows, right? And that's how the orbs that were hanging on GLaDOS to regulate her personality were shaped in the first game. So if you think back to that, it's like, oh, that makes sense what he is and how he would turn evil at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But then the twist where GLaDOS is on your team and but still insulting you.
And you start learning the whole backstory behind, Aperture Laboratories and all that.
That's actually a really neat point because Aperture Laboratories, like the earliest parts, are on the very bottom. The fundamental drive behind Cave Johnson and Aperture Science is progress for progress's own sake. They build on top of the past and ignore it. Like they're the layers upon layers. It's constantly improving without ever like learning from mistakes.
Yep.
Or so like the symbolism of like the layers that go deeper is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So
And some of the things they left behind for the science.
right,
which are
humanity, for instance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even some of the tools that they had at their disposal, like the different,
The
Gels
speed
that
and the
they
bouncy
had.
gels, yeah.
They
which
don't-
would have been really, interesting tools to use in testing facilities, but they decided, oh, we don't need that anymore if we just put portal surfaces everywhere.
Mhm.
So they left behind things that they learned in the past for the sole sake of doing something new and different.
Scientism. We'll get to that.
So yeah, that was that. But like the symbolism there and but through the level design, right?
Yeah.
I like storytelling through gameplay and level design. It's one of my things.
Yeah. We like good story design and level design in this podcast.
And in particular, just like showing and not telling. You know, there's
Right.
absolutely no exposition dumping in this
No.
game. It's you.
There's
you have to
exposition.
learn what you learn from observing.
Yeah, you have to put everything together on your own to figure out what's
I
going
mean,
on.
what exposition there is while you're carrying around Wheatley, he might be like, "Oh, so what happened between the first game and this one? Well, some human blew up the robot. Several years later happened, and we met, and you're caught up to speed now."
Mm-hmm.
Or like GLaDOS being like, "Oh, this is the old test chambers," or Cave Johnson being like, giving the background hints.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also like read on the walls like the different motivational posters and the different like awards on the shelf and stuff that kind of give you a history of the characters and of the world, and it makes it feel like a lived-in place
Mm-hmm.
that just through observation you can pick apart its history.
Yeah.
It's really good. Also, you get a lot in the early parts of Portal 2, you get a lot more crazy scrawlings from the guy behind the walls.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was actually like a tie-in promotional comic about Ratman, as he's called, where he goes crazy carrying around his companion cube and trying to dodge GLaDOS.
Yep.
But that's something I haven't read. I probably ought to track it down and find it.
Yeah, I
Kinda
know.
like that.
I've heard about it. And then there's the Portal 2 has a co-op mode, which also has its own little story to it, which is kind
little
of
bit.
fun. I've been playing through that with John, but we haven't quite finished it.
I mean, it doesn't add much to the story. It's
No.
just kind of what GLaDOS does after Chell leaves. She has 2 robots that she tests with and insults.
Yeah.
I mean, she's revealed that she was attempting to phase out human testing until Chell came in and tried to murder her,
Yeah.
and succeeded at murdering her.
Yeah.
So the whole robot testing thing makes sense and is anticipated.
It was built up to in
Yeah.
the main game, so it's not
Yeah,
very
so
often.
it's not just like it's not just an aside, you know.
You know, here's
extra
more
thing you
content
can
for
do.
you.
It's given an excuse in game, and there are endless like user created levels you could download off Steam Workshop 2.
Mm-hmm.
As if
Which is why they
she's
haven't made a
testing
Portal
into
3,
infinity.
because that's not really necessary.
Also, it's like they haven't made a Half-Life 3 or a Team Fortress 3 or a Left 4 Dead 3.
Because Valve
They're
can't
making
count to
Left
3.
4 Dead 4. They're making a new Left 4 Dead.
Is it actually Left 4 Dead? There was like another
back
company
back
making...
for more or something.
Or
back
Back-
for blood.
Back for Blood, yeah. That's what it's
Oh,
called.
is it the same team though? I thought Back for Blood was a spiritual sequel by some of
Yeah,
the
it's a
same
I
different
thought it was
team.
the same studio.
I don't know if it was Valve.
No, I mean like the same team of characters.
Maybe- Well,
Or-
No, it's
Which
definitely
creators?
not the same team.
The
of
same team of
characters.
developers is what I meant.
Ah.
As I understood, it was the same developers but a different publisher because Valve doesn't want to count to 3.
Anyway,
Anyway,
Anyway.
that's why they went back for blood and didn't count to 3.
Mhm.
Yes, Valve does not know how to count to 3.
No.
even the third Half-Life game was just additions to 2 and then Alex.
Yeah.
But that's
That's for another time.
for another.
Let's see. Yeah, I guess the parts I liked about Portal beyond what we've discussed, those are all good things. The gameplay, like the Source engine, if for those who haven't played, it's first person, but all the movement is very smooth for the most part.
And all the objects are physics based.
Mhm.
They kind of react how you would expect them to when
Yeah.
dropped or thrown or whatever.
There's just such a fun level of interactivity in the way the game is played.
And there's an elegance to the mechanics where it's like it's pretty simple. You put one portal in one place and you put in a portal in another place, and what you would expect to happen happens. Like
Yep.
if you fall a great distance through a portal on the floor, you come out really fast on a portal on the side, so you can make tall jumps and you can.
And the difficulty simply comes from your ability to wrap your head around what you have to do to get from point A to point B.
And it slowly
And an
gets-
understanding of your toolkit.
right, and the physics involved with that. And it's
Yeah, because really the only controls are,
jump, crouch, grab things, and shoot portals.
yeah, pretty simple. There's no inventories. There's no health or
It's
to
not an
manage.
RPG.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, it is, but it's not like your typical classic RPG style.
Mhm.
it's a puzzle platformer.
Yeah.
It's a puzzle platformer.
So it's like has an elegance to its design where really anybody can get into them as long as you don't get motion sickness.
Mhm.
If you do, you might have a problem with some of the sequences.
Yeah.
But like
So be warned.
they're constantly on sale on Steam, and they're really accessible, and the banter is best experience for yourself.
Mhm.
So not
very
not sponsored or anything, but
cleverly written game.
yeah, good. It's a very very fun game.
So, with that being said, what are some transcendental things we can gather from the Portal games, starting with truth?
Truth.
For science?
For
question
science, question mark. That's the big one. Where
mark? Has science gone too far?
In this case,
Yes.
yes, very much so. There are a whole lot of unethical things that science has done and that science has caused to happen through GLaDOS going out of control.
And neurotoxining everyone in the facility and testing subjects like lab rats.
And
Human
not-
beings like as
and
if
it's
they're
not
lab
just
rats.
how well they can solve logical puzzles, but how they react when they're in a room with deadly lasers, or how they react when you give them a cube with a heart painted on it and call it the companion cube. How do they react to that, and how quickly do they kill it after it's helped them through a long, arduous puzzle?
Yep. The whole game sort of gives you this vibe about science as if, like, if you ever read about some messed up psychological studies from the 1950s, it's like you can
Which is
kind
a-
of tell, like, you know, where the game makers had to have had some of their inspiration.
And the earliest Aperture Science buildings were in the 50s and 60s, and that's in the peak of that science for science's sake, ethics be darned
Yeah.
kind of time.
And the after effects are like, this has actually had some kind of messed up consequences. So don't do things simply for the sake of knowing what happens. Because
Also, by the way, these testing spheres are made of pure asbestos. So if you feel a shortness of breath or anything like that, that's not nothing we did to you. That's asbestos.
You have to recognize the epistemic place of science within the greater whole of human knowledge. So nowadays, science is treated as the be-all, end-all of human knowledge, when it is
it's sort of an empirical, like pure empiricism is sort of the norm these days.
Yeah. But also, like, there's this almost cult of scientific worship of, you know, whatever the big shot scientist says goes, even when it contradicts other principles that we have. Now, let's be clear, scientific experts are scientific experts. They know what they're talking about. They have an understanding of the process that is required to have epistemic validity in science that they do. And they know a heck of a lot more than you or I do, no matter how
At
much
least on their given subject.
Yes. But also we have to recognize that science does not have the ability to, you know, speak to certain truths about human life.
Science
about
tells
existence.
us how, not why.
Right. It's very, very good at telling us how things work. And it's great for that purpose. But, you know, it cannot explain why we exist and what our purpose is.
It's like you can't explain literature with math. You know, like you gotta.
It depends on the literature, I suppose.
There are different ways of knowing,
And there are higher ways of knowing than science.
but
And
science
Useful
is,
as it is.
And
That doesn't make it invalid.
And but to ignore the philosophy, to ignore the human element, the intrinsic value and dignity of human beings, treating them like lab rats, and that's a big no-no.
And all that is sort of like the absurdity of that mindset is sort of put on display in tongue-in-cheek fashion in the Portal games.
Particularly in Cave Johnson's character, which J.K. Simmons does an
Excellent
excellent job. In fact, Stephen Merchant who does Wheatley, is so funny. The that's beauty.
The bumbling robot core. and
That's
all that
beauty.
stuff.
We'll talk
Yeah,
about
we'll
the
get to that.
excellent voice acting later. And
Any
everything.
other? I guess that's like the core truths of the Portal games, I suppose.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Goodness. What is good in the Portal games?
For the most part, there isn't a whole lot of goodness, particularly in the first game when GLaDOS is just treating you harshly and coldly.
Mm-hmm.
The main elements of goodness come like at the very end of Portal 2 with GLaDOS's Act of Mercy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Well,
Even-
even you
even
and
that
her
is-
working together to try to get out of a tricky situation.
I mean, with her, it's because she hates Ridley and his
ulterior
revenge.
motives. Yeah.
But yeah, but there's also kind of an element of human
Triumph of the human spirit.
triumph of the human spirit sort of thing with
Yeah.
Chell overcoming man versus machine, right?
There are a few games I found myself as immersed in. Like, there's something about Source, like Valve games, that are very atmospheric and that you just sort of feel like sort of panicky and trapped when you're playing this game. And so,
Mhm.
like, this real palpable desire to get out is like you very much experience.
Yeah,
that.
the catharsis of figuring stuff out and be like, haha, I'm surviving.
Mhm.
I am smart.
I'm smart.
Yep.
So yeah, it's kind of lacking in the goodness department.
Yeah. There's
but
not a ton there.
there's not a ton, but that's kind of the point given the elements of truth that are there. It's
Mhm.
like this is science with a lack of goodness.
Yeah. It's sort of a morally depraved atmosphere
Mm-hmm.
where you can't be so objective that you just lose all sight of, the value of human life. Yeah.
But speaking of the atmosphere,
Let's get into beauty.
because these are good. There's a lot of beautiful things about these games.
Oh, yes.
The first one ages actually really well.
Mm-hmm.
They made a really smart move when making the first one of making it the thing that ages the worst in video game or like any kind of 3D art is human characters.
Yes.
Unless they're like heavily stylized or something, human characters always come off as ugly and weird 10 years down the line.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't see hardly any humans aside from maybe yourself whizzing through the other portal.
Mm-hmm.
If you place portals right, you can see yourself. But
And
there's
you
otherwise
have kind of
no
a clunky
mirror.
looking model, but
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
you don't see it very often.
And your legs are literally clunky.
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, you've got like these leg
Little
braces.
springy braces to justify you not taking fall damage
Right.
Mhm.
ever.
But shifting focus away from human characters allows the artificial. Everything looks artificial because you're in a built like testing facility,
Mm-hmm.
and so because of that creative decision, it holds up a whole lot better nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, it would look better made in the modern day, but it's like you
I
can.
mean, even the
You can-
textures and
yeah.
environments and lighting and everything, it still holds up. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe the acid pits are like, okay, whatever, but you
Portal
know,
2 more than Portal 1 though.
yeah.
The advances made in Portal 2 is like, oh, okay, this is really good. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, they have a lot more naturalistic areas with like nature creeping in on the early test chambers,
Mm-hmm.
dilapidated ruins of the old aperture facilities.
They use some clever tricks in the level design too to give some of the spots like this really
It's
voluminous.
fantastic scope.
Yeah, it's like, dang, I feel like I'm in a massive, like, this looks like a bottomless pit in front of me right now.
Right.
It really sells the effect of.
And the dynamic music helps with that too.
Mhm.
Particularly in 2, there's a lot of like dynamic music where it's very background and atmospheric.
Mhm.
But when you jump on a launch pad or slide down the orange gel, the music will pick up in this weird techno synthy way. It's like
Yeah.
so the music matches the actions. It's really really cool.
And when you finish the games, like the
The songs at
oddly
the end of the
happy.
game.
Oh, it's like
Still Alive and Want You Gone
Mhm.
are
I really,
Two of my favorites.
They're
really
fantastic.
hate you. This is a happy song, but I'm upset that you murdered me.
Jonathan Colton's writing and Ellen McLean's delivery in singing. She has a good singing voice,
Mhm.
but it's also been auto-tuned and computerized to be in character.
Yep. Yeah.
So those are just on their own fantastic songs, but in the context of the story, it's like, oh, they actually there's actually a
There is
third
cake at
GLaDOS
the end.
song. Oh, there is cake at the end of the first one. But I was
Mhm.
going to say there actually exists a third GLaDOS song
That's right.
that is performed by Ellen McLean and written by Jonathan Colton for Lego Dimensions.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we watched that one time, right?
Yeah, I think I showed you that one.
Yeah, we never played the game, but
But that's a different game. But it's like it's funny that they went all out with that.
the scene where I watched the scene where they had because it's like this Lego multiverse of different franchises, right? And so Portal meets up with or Gladys meets up with HAL 9000. All of a sudden they're having a psychopath robot or a psychopath AI argument.
I can't let you do that, Dave. For the last time, my name is not Dave.
Yeah, so
But
that's fun.
Coming to the writing, I mean, that the writing is fantastic. The 4 voice actors have really fantastic delivery. It's funny. There's only 4 speaking roles in the whole series.
Yeah, that's right. You
It's
got
like-
the classic silent protagonist going on.
right,
GLaDOS, Cave, Wheatley,
and then the automatic,
and then the automated voice guy.
In fact, I love the joke they make about how Chell doesn't talk at the beginning of Portal 2. Wheatley's like, can you say something, anything? And it says press space to talk, and you jump. It's like, no, that was jumping. You just jumped there. Say apple. Press space to say apple and jump again. It's like, you know what? That's going to have to do. But you're a good jumper. We know you're a good jumper. You got the jumping. You're good at jumping. So it's very funny, very well written. The graphics and the audio.
It's a game that you can honestly recommend to just about anybody.
Oh yeah,
This is how you get people into gaming and convince them that gaming is not this inane, stupid, like thing for 12-year-olds
or children yelling at 12-year-olds.
or men, children. Yelling at
Some games
12-year-olds.
are like that, but not
Those
this
Not-
do exist. This is not one of them.
And it's like I can only not recommend this if you have motion sickness problems. Aside from that,
We have a whole episode on that topic, so go listen to it if you haven't.
absolutely
Motion
pick up
sickness?
Portal and Portal 2 if you can.
Is
like, when are we talking about that?
is Vidya art?
Oh yeah. Episode 2, if you
And
can
I think
stomach
I
the
think I
audio.
used Portal as my example of
Yeah,
what I like in video games.
back
So, yeah,
in the early days of the pod.
in the early make us cringe days.
Yeah. Unity. What unites all the themes and motifs and whatever in Portal?
I think it just really all comes together in the level design and the levels themselves.
It's all come together.
The storytelling and the whole the visuals, the audio, the storytelling, the themes. It all
The level design
is
and
told
everything, the
through the
gameplay.
levels and the natural progression of the game of solving these puzzles. And so I really think that the test chambers, in fact, I believe the whole premise started with, okay, let's make a game about portals and putting portals places. Well, how can we telegraph where the portals can go? How can we telegraph where the end goal is? Why are we making portals in a puzzle game? The whole theme of a test chamber that you're just testing the equipment came up from the main the core mechanics they wanted to explore. And from there, the rogue AI happened, and the whole everything stemmed from the
You're trying
mechanics.
to escape from this rogue AI in this twisted testing facility where you're the subject.
And that all came from the idea of how do we clearly communicate the mechanics and the rules? How do we properly tutorialize this?
And how do we make it fun?
Exactly. So it really all came together because of the creative decisions necessary to make this puzzle game make sense. And so you playing the game is the full experience.
Not to mention like the actual crazy mathematics and physics involved in creating the game.
Right. So 3 guys talking about the story on a podcast really doesn't do it justice because it's
go
a
play
game
it.
you kind of have to play to really get it.
And it's quite short
Oh yeah,
as
you could-
games
2
go.
is a little longer.
if you suck at
Still-
it, the second one might take you 10 hours,
Yeah.
which
if
is
you suck at it, it might take you like 13.
sure. And if you suck at the first one, it'll take you 5.
Mm-hmm.
You could beat both of them in an afternoon if you've played them once.
Yeah. So,
But I don't mind short games. It doesn't outstay its welcome.
yeah. All in all,
What I'm saying is it's very, very good introductory material.
indeed. Good for it's like younger kids can play this too. It's pretty tame.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I
well
don't know
Simon
about that.
played it.
Simon played it at like 10,
Yeah.
13, in between that range. So that's where you're going to get them, where you can start to get the most appreciation out of it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
The severity of the background stuff and
Yeah.
some of the jokes. It's like, yeah, you're going to want to be a little older than the age of reason to play this.
Yeah. Yeah. But all in all, good
All in
stuff.
all, good stuff.
Yeah. Any other comments?
Nope.
All
I think
right.
we might have touched on all the stuff I wanted to talk about.
Sweet. Well, thanks for listening to the Palladium Papists. You can listen to us on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at PalPapists. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, or suggestions for future episodes, email us at palladiumpapists@gmail.com. Stay tuned for next episode. There's going to be some fun stuff coming down the pipeline.
Fun stuff.
Fun stuff indeed.
Something a little different, but still kind of more or less what we do.
More or less.
So, we'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.